Up to 8 hours of broadcasting live. Life is Hard podcast. Season 2. Season 2.
Nobody in their right mind would watch this for 8 hours.
We won't do it for 8 hours. There's no, you can, man, I can't move in my chair at all. Or my little circle background shows its edges. That sucks. But it could be worse.
Hey, breaking news. They acquitted the guys on that that held up the Oregon Wildlife Refuge.
Oh yeah? I forgot all about that.
Well, they were just acquitted now, like today. I mean, I don't know about now per se, but today.
Awesome. Okay, I re-racked the music so we have it for the end. Welcome back to the Life is Hard podcast, season 2. We're back for now. That's what I'm calling the episode. We're back.
Hey, everybody.
For now. You got to talk more.
I forgot to bring liquor, so.
Ooh, yeah, the drinking game.
This is, well, they can drink if they want, but I won't be drinking. Usually I'm drunk by the end of the podcast.
Yeah, I don't know if you're allowed to drink on the air, on Hangouts on air, on YouTube.
Well, I guess if we put up a adult content warning or something and say
that is loud.
I'm
mail opening.
I have mail. I've been getting this mail for months and I've been holding on to it just so we could, open it on the podcast. Sorry for all the noise, but these are good sound effects.
Yes.
So
there's a Foley artist in the back.
Yeah, exactly.
Ruffling stuff together. Man, hold on. I need to do the camera dealy here so that I can put it on you on purpose. So, that's not the cameraman. What about this? That's not it. That's fine.
In case you guys are wondering, we don't do this very often. We're figuring this out as we go. Oh, this was a survey. I was supposed to return it by September 30th.
All right, it's on you for now. The mail is blocking your face. Congratulations.
Yeah, well, I was supposed to return it by September 30th. Now, guess what? America will never be great again. It's going to be all my fault. Survey questions. Oh, I can't read all these.
You know when America was great? Before it was discovered.
Before I was born. Oh, yeah, probably.
Before it was discovered. You want to make America great again. Get all of us out and give it back to the Indians. We should all go to Europe and...
Yeah, speaking of that,
have free healthcare in France.
I don't know if you saw this in the news today. It wasn't covered by the mainstream news very much, but they were fixing to blow them Indians away over in North Dakota.
Oh yeah. Well, I've been pseudo following it as much as possible. Last I heard, they had some success actually in derailing it or postponing it or something to that effect.
Today was really hot because hot is in war type hot. They have an encampment out there, and
not like they wore lingerie or anything hot.
No, nothing like that. I mean, that's what I would normally rather talk about. But yeah, the poor Native Americans have and their supporters have an encampment, and the news pictures, which were on social media from the Native Americans themselves, show a line of 200 police officers and whatever. They've got armored vehicles, and they're basically coming in to
destroy them.
Yeah. They were on a loudspeaker saying, if there's anyone in the tent, come out, get out of the way before you die, basically. So yeah, it was pretty bad today. I didn't really have time to follow the whole thing, but I was following it on social media. Twitter had updates. It's funny, if you don't watch social media, you don't hear about a lot of this stuff.
Right. Well, thanks for depressing us.
Yeah, well, I was just reading. You're the one who brought up when America was great, so.
I just said before it was discovered, that's all.
Yeah, and that's
back when the Native Americans were in control. I used to call them Indians, and I meant nothing by it, but apparently you can't say Indians anymore.
I mean, technically it's incorrect. I mean, they were named Indians because Columbus thought he found India. It was never the right name, but yeah. I'm pretty sure there are things we definitely don't want to call them, like Redskins or Savages or anything like that.
Speaking of,
Yeah.
and I've tried this out on a few people, so maybe I'm just crazy, but I think I told you this before, but I have a solution to the Washington Redskins problem with,
Oh
changing their
yeah.
name and all
I
that.
can't believe they still exist. So what's the solution?
Well, in my world, there's something called a redskin potato.
Oh, there you go. So they just have a potato
So
icon.
exactly, we remove the Native American from the helmet. We replace it with a potato. End of problem. They can still be called the Redskins.
Well, I think the logo is probably the most offensive thing. When I look at their logo, I'm offended.
Right. Well,
I mean, it really is kind of like a cartoon, something from an old Western, back in the days when they had Caucasian people pretending to be Native Americans wearing red makeup and, I mean, it just looks ridiculous. It's just like,
yeah,
really?
well,
I
he's
mean,
got the war paint on, but I mean,
yeah.
there's Pocahontas. I don't know if you ever saw that Disney movie. They caricature the Indians or Native Americans or
Well,
whatever.
and that's not a
Yeah.
very flattering thing to do. That's the
I'm
thing.
not saying it's okay. I'm just
Yeah.
saying it's
I
not.
know it's the norm. I know it's but that's one of the reasons why I continuously see commentary in my Twitter feed that says we're a bunch of crass assholes.
Well, that's hence the potato.
Yeah, I think
It,
it's a great idea. That's why I said I think the logo is the most offensive part. So if you change the logo to a potato, then yeah, we're good.
excellent. So in other news, you have mail that you've now opened very loudly.
Well,
And
yeah, that was a survey. I
go
hadn't
ahead.
opened it, so I didn't know what it was. But it was just a survey with a bunch of questions that I don't want to read because they're all, you know, just silly questions. And then when I
Well,
got to the end of the survey, they just want me to send them money.
well, can I show you my mail then?
Sure.
Okay, so you can see me now, right?
I mean, I have more mail, but that was the one I didn't know what it was. I thought it was going to be exciting because it said "Make America Great Again" on it.
This is actually Cindy's mail because somehow they sent my voter registration to a different address than where I'm at. But anyway, so how do we get this on the
Hillary Clinton could
Oh
fill.
wow, that's backwards, isn't it?
No, well, not on my end. It's not. Could
Oh.
fill 3 seats on the Supreme Court, changing its balance.
On my ad or on my end, it's backwards.
Yeah, but they should see what I see.
Right. Okay. So, but here's the crazy part to me, right? If you can see this right sideways or right side right, or whatever the hell I'm trying
It's
to say.
not mirrored. Yes, it's not
If you
mirrored.
see this unmirrored, you will see that this is from the Republicans. Yet Hillary Clinton, blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
Hillary Clinton, blah 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 blah, from the Republicans. From the Democratic Party of North Carolina, right? What do you think they're talking
Donald
about?
Trump, yes.
Donald Trump all over the place. Donald Trump on the front and the back of the Democrat one. Hillary Clinton all over the Republican one. And here's still another one that's got Trump all over it, right? And how do I explain Trump to my kids? And first of all, it's just ironic and insane. But clearly, both of their messages are don't elect the other person. You know, forget about, you're on camera, by the way. Forget about
sorry.
Forget about what we'll do for you. The main reason to elect me is if the other person gets in. Oh God, we're done.
Well, that's what happens when you're so unpopular that you can't just say you want to elect me, so go ahead. That's why I've been campaigning for Jill Stein, because I like Jill Stein. She's articulate, she's intelligent, she's concerned about the environment. She's got I don't agree with her on every single issue, but everything that I disagree with her on is just an honest disagreement. Like, we just have a slight difference in point of view on certain things, but it's not like she's off in left field wanting to do something crazy like build a wall between us and Mexico that's going to cost $1 trillion, you know.
Yeah, well, of course, that depends on who you talk to, whether she's in left field or not. There are plenty of people that think she's way out in left field, including people I respect, unfortunately, such as John Oliver, and
Well, but
that kind of stuff.
I'm a, you know, I'm no, there's no, I don't make any bones about being an environmentalist, being a bit of a left wing liberal. So to me, she sounds pretty. I mean, like I said, there are things I do disagree with her on, but still, it's not like Hillary Clinton or Donald Trump, where I'm like, okay, electing Hillary Clinton. And now, to be fair, Hillary Clinton has the perfect resume for the job. You look at her experience, her job experience, which is she's been around. That woman knows the job better than anybody else in the world. And in that sense, she's the most qualified person we could possibly elect. But at the same time, you look at what's happening in Washington and what's been happening in Washington since I was voting age. I guess it's probably all my fault. It's just been getting worse and worse and worse. Like the last thing I want to do is send somebody back who's been there for 30 years. Because, like, look, you're just clearly part of the problem. And
well, not only that, the dangerous part of the president or Congress or any of these is the ideal candidate would not want the job. I'm nervous about anyone that wants to be president, because if you want to be president, that scares me. The person that I want to elect is somebody who's like, well, I really don't want all this, mega responsibility, blah, 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 blah. But if the people are asking for me, I will do it out of service to them, even though I really don't want to. That's the kind of person that I think, of course, I'm also manually running cameras here, so you'll have to deal with me. But that's the kind of person that I would want to elect. Hillary Clinton is the antithesis of that person. From 1968 until now, she's been plotting, scheming, working toward, like when she made that crack
sure,
about, I'm prepared. I've been preparing for this my whole life. She has. That's scary. She has been on a one-way track to, I'm going to be president no matter what it takes, no matter how I have to lie, no matter
no
who
matter who I have to blow.
Right. No matter who I have to disenfranchise, which you
Yeah.
distracted me there for a minute because we need to talk about Madonna also. But anyway, beside the point, the fact is she's been after this for 50 years on a beeline for the presidency, and so anything she says is questionable. Anything she may or may not do once she has that power, is just scary to me, because all she cares about is having the power.
Well, and what you're talking about is something Douglas Adams lectured about. Even in one of his books or something I read, he said, the people who are truly qualified to lead don't want the job because they feel like the responsibility is too much for one person, or they
Right.
don't feel like any one person should tell other people what to do. Like it's really a bad idea when you think about it. The idea that anybody would go into office and then determine what's right for the rest of the people in the country, they clearly don't have a clue. But government has to operate somehow, and that's how it ends up operating. But if you don't mind me changing the subject for a second, this judge, Billy Sutton here, I got his thing here, and the first thing on his list of credentials is he was a Sunday school teacher for 20 years at Clinton United Methodist Church.
Okay.
So I'm thinking, okay, so you want me to vote for a guy who has invisible friends and who talks to them probably on a regular basis.
Yeah.
And as a judge.
Exactly. Somebody who's going to apply rational thought to problems.
Just the idea that that's his number one point on his resume is he taught Sunday school class. I'm like, okay, so you have a deep-seated belief in mythology and you pray to an invisible person. And now you want me to elect you as a judge based on that. That scares me. Now, I'm not saying that he can't be a Christian, but the fact that he puts that as his first bullet, like that's his first, qualification. There's something wrong with that.
There went all the Christians in the audience. Bye.
That's Sorry. Okay. They can go because we're not
atheism is showing.
We're not supposed to make decisions based on that. That's not you know, maybe for your personal life, but anyway, I have a picture of Deborah Ross throwing money around. I'm thinking that's why I want to elect her, because she's going to throw money at me. How is that a bad thing?
Well, it's clearly not. It's like when the beer commercials show you getting the hot chick because you drink the right beer.
Yeah,
like
yeah. I mean,
elect the person who's pictured throwing money around because.
And actually, to be fair, Deborah Ross isn't that bad looking either. I mean, you've got a hot chick that's throwing money at you. Well,
and is she a fiscal conservative?
And not according to these people.
Just for the irony of it.
No, she's a Democrat. That's why I get.
Oh, that's why she's throwing the money.
This is the same. This is in keeping with the same thing that we were talking about earlier, where you said everything that you get has Donald Trump on it. Everything I get has Hillary Clinton on it. This is the same shit. I get not stuff from the Republican Party saying these are our candidates and this is how great they are, but this is the other guy's candidate and they suck.
Right. Yeah, no, I got Hillary Clinton stuff too. I got it from both sides because we're unaffiliated, so we get both mail.
Oh, yes.
We get the swing voter, swing state, whatever mailings where both parties are like, "Are you undecided? Well, take a good hard look at them and realize how bad they are, and then vote for the only other alternative, which is me." Vote for me.
Apparently, Deborah Ross thinks that people from countries all across the Western Hemisphere are also Americans.
Well, they are. South America, North America.
Well, I'm not.
Makes American to me.
I'm not sure what they mean by that. Was she saying that they were citizens? Like that they could, I mean, maybe they are legal citizens. Maybe they came from somewhere else and became citizens. That I'm not quite sure what they even mean by that. They're basically trying to diss her on this point. And I'm like, I'm not sure what you're trying to say or what the context of what she said was, because all the quotes they have are, quote, "they're also Americans." She didn't actually say specifically, you know, the quote doesn't include that. So I'm like, well, come on, people. If you're gonna convince me not to vote for somebody, you have to do better than that. I get so much. Deborah Ross pissed somebody in the Republican Party off really bad. I guess I should look at who's paying for this stuff, because that's
not only is she a Democrat, she's a woman, so she's going to get it twice as bad from the.
Oh yeah, I can't believe they were talking about that in the news about how poor Hillary is taking a bit of a beating because she's a woman. But this is the North Carolina Republican Party sending me this shit. Yeah. There's seriously a double standard. There's no doubt. This one's good. They've got Hillary on one side looking at a baby that she slaughtered, or at least approved. She approved of slaughtering anyway. I just think that is so disingenuous. The abortion people keep talking about partial birth abortions. They keep talking about you know, in this case they show an actually, you know, fully formed toddler, right? I mean, a kid's probably several months old, if not older, and act as if, you know, that's what an abortion is all about, when the vast majority of abortions are done in the first trimester. They'll find the one exception and they'll put it up on a billboard somewhere and say, this is what's happening all over the country. Millions of kids are being slaughtered on their way out of the birth canal. And it's like, that is so not true. Just anyway.
I mean, it all, to me, the abortion issue is tough. It always goes back to when you believe life begins. Does it begin at conception? Does it begin at birth? Somewhere in between? All that other nonsense. You know, because obviously taking a life would be something to be against, you know, that most people would be against. But they lose me and many others in their argument when they, you know, like the slam against them that I agree with is like they're all about the baby before it's born, but after it's born, fuck that kid. No welfare, no food, no free ride, kid. You know, you better get a job by the time you're 2 because my tax dollars ain't supporting your ass, you know. But prior to being born, you know, oh my God, we have to save it, do everything in our power, you know.
Well, and there's another double standard there too. They won't, you know, a lot of these people don't want to pay for birth control. Right. But yet they want to insist that the woman carry a baby to term when she, you know, doesn't have birth control options. there's so many things in here that are just totally, again, disingenuous, because you can't have it both ways. Like you said, they don't want to take care of them after they're born, but also, to be completely, I'm sure there are people that could argue with me, including people who are doctors, but as long as that child cannot survive outside the womb, it is a parasite. It is not a human being. It is simply surviving on the woman who's carrying it, and if she decides she wants to abort it, there's really nothing. She's not killing anything. Because if she died, it would die with her.
Right. Well, and there, I mean, that's just a way of looking at the question of where does life begin, which I think is, complex. And obviously you've made up your mind. I never have really made up my
Every
mind,
single
but
sperm cell I spew onto the ground is a life, if you want to get there. If you want to
Well,
talk
I
about
mean,
living cells, because
sure.
that's what we're talking about.
Well, trees are alive. Pets are
Well,
alive.
but I mean, my cells are human.
Yeah.
They've got my DNA. They're potentially babies. They could
Right.
become. So that's the argument they want to spew out, though. That this, in the first trimester, you're talking about something that's basically very undeveloped, and later abortions, I will definitely take the side of, hey, if this baby's viable and you're going to kill it, you better have a good reason. I'm not saying it's not a good reason, but you better have a good reason. You better not just be like, yeah, I think I want to kill it, baby. But at the same time, there's a point in it, and after conception, when it's basically nothing more than a zygote, and it's it's microscopic, and they take a pill. There's no hack and slash. There's no DNC. There's none of that. The woman takes a pill, she aborts, it's over with. And that's the vast majority of abortions. And I don't see how you can really argue against that logically, unless you're just taking the hard line that a cell is alive and it's growing. Well, I hate to tell you this, there's a lot of cells that are alive and growing that you discard.
Right. Like when I wash my skin.
Well, hopefully those are mostly dead, but yeah.
I've got a fly attacking me here. But and ultimately we're two guys talking about what women have to deal with. So
that's the reason why I'm pro-choice, is because I really don't make judgments on other people doing things that I can't possibly understand.
Right.
And that's the other problem with our laws, is they're not being made by women. They're not being made by people who really understand the problem. They're being made by people who are bringing their personal morality into the situation, even when it defies science. But this letter from Donald Trump says, I realize there are a handful of grassroots Republicans like you who have not yet contributed to the Trump Make America Great Again committee. Time is running out, and I need you to reconsider. Now, there goes that one.
I don't think you really reconsidered.
I did. For a moment there, I did. I reconsidered.
I didn't see it.
I blinked at least twice. I'm telling you, this Deborah Ross, she's just been the target of some ridiculously vicious attack ads. They always find the worst pictures of Hillary Clinton to put on these things too, don't they?
Yeah.
Like, she's just like, her mouth is open and she's, like, ah! Yeah.
It's time for Halloween.
Yeah, they have Halloween masks for both Hillary and Trump. It's pretty scary.
I am going to be your president. I think my auto white balance is going crazy.
We should talk. Yeah, that's the problem. You get that auto white balance and blue screen behind you. But if we're going to be
harsh light from one direction,
if we're going to be fair to Obama, who they keep saying doesn't know how to protect us from terrorists,
do we have to be?
I think it's only fair to be fair, but that's just me. Sometimes
being fair is not fair.
It's
totally unfair of you to say, to be fair.
Well,
but
and
to be fair, you're entitled to your opinion.
And the least we can do is be fair when we're not being fair, because I have no idea where we're going with this.
We can be equally unfair to everyone, thereby being fair in our unfairness.
But we've had a few attacks in Obama's 8 years, which is, it's 8 years. 8 years is a long time. We've had a few, what I would consider to be relatively minor terrorist incidents. Even though, every time somebody gets killed, it's a big deal. And the one in was it Orlando? The bar,
the nightclub deal.
Yeah, the nightclub thing. That was pretty vicious. But I'm not even sure that
That
guy
was,
was a. I'm not even sure he was an Islamic terrorist. I think he just said that just to.
yeah, I think I read somewhere, and I could be wrong. I think I read somewhere that it turned out that he was just anti-gay and not
Yeah,
anti-American.
which would make him a perfect Christian.
Well, I mean, doesn't yeah. See how much the Christians and Muslims have in common? We
Oh,
don't.
they have a lot in common. They don't realize it though.
I know.
But I guess my point though was that they keep saying how Obama has not kept us safe, and my memory is clearly twisted because I remember the biggest attack we've ever had on this country back in 2001, and that was while George Bush was in office. And since then, if we count the people that have been killed in foreign wars related to this thing, I would say George Bush has a pretty piss poor record. And Obama's pretty good because Obama brought most of our troops home. We've lost some troops in Afghanistan and stuff, but he's reduced the forces overseas, and he's generally stopped any major attacks here. I don't know what's actually been done to stop or prevent or anything else, because terrorist attacks are like anything. It's almost like saying we have to prevent disease. You can't really define it. You can't say what we're really trying to prevent because they come up with different ways of attacking us. We come up with different definitions of terrorists. Basically, anybody who disagrees with us is a terrorist.
And us is not necessarily us.
No, no, definitely not us. I mean, it could be any. It could just be someone. I
If you
mean,
disagree with the Life is Hard podcast, you are now officially a terrorist.
well, those poor Native Americans out in North Dakota right now are probably at some
Right?
level considered to be terrorists. They're treating them like they're
Oh, at
terrorists.
every level, I bet.
You
You know,
know,
I don't think there's any question.
and they're just trying to protect their homeland, which I have mixed feelings about all that too. I guess the way I look at that, I had this discussion with somebody recently, is I think, to be realistic, they should realize they're never going to stop that pipeline. However, by bringing attention to this stuff and by creating friction for the pipelines, they are keeping the industry honest. I mean, when I say honest, it's probably a bad word, but they force the industry to be vigilant. They force the environmental impact studies to happen. If nobody were to protest, if everybody just said, "Oh well, the pipelines are going through, let's let them go through," they would put that pipeline in a straight line across whatever was in the way, because it would save them money to make the pipeline as short as possible.
Right.
But they end up making the pipeline go all over the place, zigging and zagging to avoid, sensitive ecosystems and people's water supplies and stuff like that. At some point, they have to cross a river, and that's where this conflict has come in. And they ended up bulldozing some sacred sites. But my point is that I don't believe it's possible to stop this sort of progress, even though I would like to. I don't think it's possible. In the world we live in, it's not going to happen. However, because they put up these fights, it does, like I say, it forces a certain level of introspection. It forces these companies to know, hey, we can't just do it the way we want. We have to at least kind of dot our I's, cross our T's, make sure we, avoid. I mean, they have to do an impact study. Everybody knows that people are going to bitch, so they've got to do the best they can do. And I think that pipeline, I don't know, I haven't studied the whole thing to see if they did the best they could do, but I know that they rerouted around things. They had discussions with people. They did all this stuff to make sure that they would have as few problems as possible. And they did that because they knew there would be protests. And especially if they didn't do that, there would have been protests. So these protests do serve a purpose. But there's only so much you can expect because, let's face it, you get in the way of a company that has a permit from the federal government that says they can do this. The federal government's going to come in and say, sorry, we gave them a permit. Now, you can argue that too all day long as far as who has the right to give permits and whether or not these people. I would like to think that the Native Americans could control their, real estate and their sacred areas and all that. But again, I'm a realist. I'm an environmentalist, but I'm also a realist.
So you're giving up, basically.
Oh no,
in the towel. You're done. Good job.
I think that
Nice
even when they get evicted and the pipeline goes through, I think what they did achieved some level of success. Is what I'm saying. Like, it's worth doing it, even though they really can't win. I don't know if
I
you've
got you.
followed Native American uprisings in this country, but they don't end well for the Native Americans ever.
Well, I don't know if you followed any uprising in this country, but they generally don't end well for the uprisers.
Well,
Almost
the
never.
people who
Since the American Revolution, that was about the last time.
I don't know, those Ted Bundy guys did pretty well. They all got acquitted. They took over the place and lived on federal property for.
I think you're giving them a lot of credit to call that an uprising. A lot of credit.
Well, they went home with their tails between their legs, but they did not get slaughtered. They did not, get charged with any crime. Well, they were charged, but they got acquitted. So I just think they kind of got away with it. I'm pretty sure, knowing what I know about things like Wounded Knee and some other things, that had the Native Americans been the ones to invade that place and try to hold it, it would have ended differently.
Oh, yeah. And I mean, you can say the same if they were a minority, if they were black
Yeah.
or Mexican or
Yeah.
whatever.
Being
Yeah,
a-
absolutely. There's your white privilege. We don't shoot you.
Yeah. Being a white Christian in this country pretty much gives you carte blanche. I mean, you can't get away with everything, but you definitely get more consideration.
As part of your white privilege, when you uprise against the government, we will allow you to live. You won't win. You might go to jail, or you may not go to jail, but you won't die. If you're not white and you don't have that privilege, you uprise against the government, you're dead.
Which reminds me, there was a guy in DC, I think it was today, who got his face broken and got a cop got his face broken, got his arm injured. He had like 3 injuries they listed. But his injuries came from another cop because he was off duty. The cop that got injured was off duty and happened to be carrying his gun, which he's supposed to do as a cop. But the other cop was looking for an armed individual that matched his description, and without giving the other guy, the off-duty cop, a chance to even say, "I'm an off-duty police officer," he slammed him to the ground, broke his face. And
nice.
Yeah. Of course, it was a black guy. Both of them were black. Both of them were black. So
gotcha.
Yeah, but the fact that the guy was the off-duty cop was complaining, saying. And it's kind of funny hearing a cop say this because it's like we keep saying it and the cop's saying, "Oh, no, we're not biased." The off-duty cop saying, "If I wasn't black, I'm pretty sure this wouldn't happen."
If I weren't black, I'm pretty sure the black officer would not have been profiling me.
Well, but that actually.
So even the black officers are profiling.
Oh yeah, they've shown
the black people.
Yeah, it's
That's just insane.
Well, it's a. They've done studies on, now that we've been doing this for a couple of years, they've been doing studies on it, and they've just found out that everybody, black people and white people, have this idea.
Hold on. Everybody is black people and white people? There aren't any other colors?
The cops in general. The way they're Yeah, I said everybody, but I mean, and I actually probably mean everybody, because I don't know that it's the training of the police officers or it's cultural. But we've got in our heads that black people are more dangerous.
Well, what about Mexicans? They're part of everybody, and they're not black and they're not white. What about Chinese people who are?
I actually think that they
called yellow, although I don't know if that's offensive or not.
No, I'm just saying. I mean, I might be misquoting some stuff and not being very accurate at what I'm saying, but the studies have shown that people in general think black people are more dangerous. They're more likely to think, if you're just looking at, doing these blind studies at 2 people, the one that's black, they would be more likely to think this guy might hurt me.
Right. You're just missing my humor.
Oh, I'm missing the humor. Okay, I'm sorry.
Yes. Because you said everybody, black people and white people. Like
that
encompasses everybody.
Right.
But it doesn't, because there's more than just black.
I completely missed. Yes, I just completely missed what you're talking about. I was trying to.
You were so serious.
Well, I was kind of trying to struggle for the right words because it's been a long time since I read this thing, but part of it is police training too, because the police training, and this I don't think is necessarily specific to races, but the police are trained basically to shoot first and ask questions later, and that, of course, that's stretching it too. That's not really what. But they're trained to be very aggressive, and to and that's got to stop, because this. I mean, we can talk about this for centuries, or for days, or for the whole 8 hours. About how many every time there's a police shooting that we're reading about, The cops are like, what was it? Was it the kid with the BB gun? They said from the time the cop arrived to the time the kid was dead was like 13 seconds or something. And I mean, this is all on record. It's all like recorded, so they know like exactly how long it took from the time the cop pulls up in his car, gets out, pulls out his gun, and shoots the kid. Granted, the kid was holding a gun. I mean, you've got to go, hey, it looked like the kid had a gun, because he did, but it wasn't a real gun. Still, like, could you as a police officer take a little while to assess the situation? Could you stay behind your vehicle so you're safe and try to determine if this person's trying to shoot you?
This is my big question in those that I thought of. It doesn't matter when I thought of it, but my question has been that don't these people have, and if not, could we not spend a little money and invent or invest and get bulletproof clothing? And I know there's like bulletproof vest, but yeah, that doesn't cover your head and your whatever. So stick them in a fucking costume. Excuse my language, YouTube. Stick them in a big old costume that is bulletproof everything. It's got a visor so they could see, but they can't get shot anywhere. And then if the criminal has a gun, or the perp, or the alleged criminal, or the innocent person they think is a criminal has a gun, then they can just walk right toward them while they're being shot and no effect, Yeah, so
well,
that eliminates the whole thing about I was being threatened.
It doesn't work though, because cops wear riot gear, which is essentially what you're talking about. I mean, they've got the shield, they've got the helmet, they've got the heavy plates.
So then there's no excuse for them to shoot anybody ever.
Well, not when they're doing the stuff when they have the riot gear, but yet when they have this riot gear on, they still are quick to shoot. I mean, we've seen many demonstrations where they're open firing on people, saying, "Oh, somebody had a gun," and it's like, wait a minute, you should be the least worried about somebody having a gun. It should be the crowd who should be terrified of the fact that you've got a rifle pointed in their face.
Exactly.
And they have no protection from you.
Hey, we're back on auto camera. Sorry.
Oh, yay.
I've been running it for the last 7.5 hours.
I just noticed it says up in the upper right corner, live.
Oh, I thought it said live.
Oh, that could be a different interpretation.
Yes, I thought it was,
That's good advice. That's good advice.
It was encouraging me.
Live. Yay.
Don't be dead. Live.
Just wait till it changes to go to bed.
Yeah. Or shut up now.
In case anybody doesn't know, it's like 11 p.m. So
Eastern Standard Time. We've been on for a while.
I know that everybody in the world has beaten this police officer thing to death, but I get so frustrated because I see these videos where the cops shoot somebody, they're on the ground and they keep shooting them. Well, and the other classic one that's happened since we had our last podcast was the
classic one. Oh
yeah, the healthcare provider.
Did you see that police shooting? Oh, that's a classic.
It was, and I haven't really heard how it came out, but I'm suspecting the cop who shot him ended up apologizing and saying it was an accident because it's the only explanation for it. But there was the autistic person in the street. Remember this? And the caseworker. It was great. I mean, it's all in video. The whole thing.
Yes, I'm sure it was great.
Well, it wasn't great for the people involved, but okay. So there's an autistic kid. Well, kid, I say he's probably an adult, but he's sitting in the street cross-legged playing with a toy truck. And the caseworker that's responsible for this guy is there telling the guy, hey, just put down the truck, And
is this something about crossing the street? I think I did hear this, but go ahead.
Well, they were sitting in the street. They're just sitting in the street. And the cops have them surrounded. The cops are everywhere. There's cops with guns.
Careful, there's a camera on. It switches at any moment.
Well,
I just got flashed off camera. Luckily, it was not live on YouTube.
Sorry, I missed that. Anyway.
This is live on YouTube.
Well, yeah, but the camera can't see me.
I'm just saying, the camera might have peripheral vision. Just be careful.
Yeah, we'll work on that.
Right there.
Okay.
She's being all smart.
She's pretty confident.
She doesn't realize there's more than one camera. So anyway, in this situation, you've got this autistic person sitting in the road. You got the caseworker sitting next to him. Caseworker's got his hands up, and he's trying to talk to the autistic person. And he's saying to the cops, he's saying, "I'm the caseworker. The guy does not have a gun. He has a toy truck." And anyway, so the caseworker never put his hands down. He kept his hands up and he's doing everything right. The cops are all armed and they're all like pointing guns at these two. Like they're gonna, like something bad's like they have a reason to point guns at them. And anyway, what happened was one of the cops shot the caseworker in the leg.
They didn't shoot the. I thought they shot the autistic kid.
No. I think the cop accidentally fired. I think it was a total accident. But the point is, why did they even have guns pointed at these two people? Nobody was doing anything threatening anybody. And if you were worried that somebody had a gun, you just stay behind your car. You know, you just like stay where you're protected. It's just this whole ridiculous level of paranoia on the part of the police department. At one time, police used to actually have more concern for the people they were trying to protect.
Well, and that's the point I keep coming back to. They have completely lost their sense of why they exist. It's to protect and serve, and it's not just to protect, you know, whoever they deem to be innocent. It's to protect everyone involved, including the perpetrator or the accused, you know, because they're still, you know, they're not the judge and jury. You're innocent until proven guilty, right? So so everyone that they deal with is innocent because nobody has been proven guilty of nothing.
Well, they're definitely not supposed to execute a death sentence on you just because you're double parked.
Even if you robbed a bank or whatever, they're still, their job is to make sure that you can have your day in court. You know, maybe they can arrest you or whatever, but it's just, first of all, it should be legitimate to ask questions. They should treat you like a person and you should be able to treat them like a person, you know, and then ultimately their job is to make sure everybody safely gets out of the situation. If that means sometimes letting the guy with the gun run off, then it means that sometimes. But
well, now if someone's a threat to other people, then part of protecting is to make sure they're not a threat to other people.
But the problem but they always use it as an excuse, because then the problem comes in of their assessment. They could easily assess that that person is a threat, just like they assessed an autistic person was a threat. They assess that unarmed people are threats. They're always assessing everybody's a threat.
Yeah, but if you have the person surrounded, you're not letting them run off with a gun. And if the person's not even brandishing a weapon, then to say you feel threatened is ridiculous. I'm talking about somebody, let's say the guy robbed a bank. Let's say he just shot the bank teller, he's running out with a gun, he's going to shoot somebody else. Well, at some point, you know, if the cops say drop it and he doesn't drop it, I can understand that. But those aren't the cases we're talking about.
I'm talking about every single case, including that one. If you want to aim at the dude's leg or whatever, that's fine. But is just because the person robbed a bank and he's running out of there with a gun does not immediately make him a threat to shoot anybody else, because chances are he probably didn't shoot anybody inside because he doesn't want to add murder and he's just trying to get away with money, you know. So, and I'm not saying let him go forever. I'm just saying that cops create as much danger as they stop by doing that shit. You know what I'm saying? Like if they start shooting at him, he's going to start shooting back, and then people are going to die, you know?
Well, I don't think you can say the cops started it, but I don't think they have to empty 3 clips into him either. I mean, we're kind of splitting hairs here. I prefer to stay with the ones where clearly the person was not armed, or was not, if they were armed, they weren't actually pointing their weapon at anybody, you know.
But if you go there, then you have to make everything situational, and you have to say, okay, police officer, in that 13 seconds, you have to immediately decide what the situation is. And it's not always clear. And that's exactly what the problem is because they are immediately deciding what the situation is, and they're deciding wrong. So they need to.
Well, part of this, their training, though. I don't think you can tell them not to shoot. You can tell them not to shoot because their life is in danger also, and nobody's going to just go out there and get shot for nothing. Like if you assess the situation and the person's pointing a gun at you, you're going to shoot them. I don't care who the fuck you are.
That's why I suggest the bulletproof clothing, so they don't have that reaction. That way the person can shoot at you and you're fine.
Yeah, well, the way they're trained is the problem, because they're literally trained that their first duty is to make sure they make it home alive that night. And then secondly, they're trained that someone with a knife who's, you know, within 15 feet of them can kill them before they can get their gun out. They're basically made to be paranoid. They're told that you have to be, you have to be on the alert. You have to be prepared to shoot. You basically have to shoot first, because if you don't shoot immediately, this person's going to kill you. That's how they're trained. I mean, I've listened to a trainer. The guy who was on the radio was talking about it.
I 1000% agree with you. I'm not disagreeing with you at all.
And I'm just saying, you got to find some middle ground, though. I'm not going to tell the police they can't shoot somebody who's clearly dangerous. Even if the cop's wearing a bulletproof vest, the guy could shoot an innocent bystander. If the guy is shooting, he has asked for it. I mean, this is somebody who's actually posing a significant fatal threat to people around him.
All right,
that's a different situation.
If they're actively shooting, I'll give you that one. If they're running down the street with a gun saying "get out of my way," then they're not necessarily actively shooting. And I'm not defending them. I'm just saying that when they get, if police officers ever get trained the right way to say it's a last resort, it needs to be an absolute last with full of regret decision that I have to do this. Oh my God, I've exhausted every other possibility, and the only one, that's going to stop. And even then, I'm going to aim for his leg first.
Well, and what you're talking about is the difference between military and police. And it used to be that there was a difference. That military training was military training. You see somebody who's moving, you kill them. You don't wait to see if they've got a gun or a bomb or whatever. But police training was, you're putting yourself out there because you're there to protect and serve, and you're trying to kill as few people as possible. But those things now are not, that's not the case anymore. I mean, cops are being trained as military. And that's the problem. I don't want to blame it all on the cops, because I don't think that they're necessarily out there to be bad cops. I just think the whole situation is ridiculous. It's definitely systemic, though. It's not. This is happening constantly. I mean, you can't pick up the newspaper today without reading about another incident where somebody was shot because a cop felt threatened. Not because the guy had a gun, not because he was pointing his gun at the cop, but the cop felt threatened. Like, okay, I feel threatened all the time. Doesn't mean I go around shooting people.
Right. But you could.
Well, I guess. Well, yes, because I'm white, I could. Here's the other contradiction here. If you're white and open carrying a firearm, you're exercising your Second Amendment rights. You're a patriot. If you're black and you're open carrying a firearm, you better be damn careful, because if a cop sees you, there's a pretty good chance you'll be dead before he finds out why you're carrying a firearm.
Even if that cop is black and the black guy carrying a gun is an off-duty cop.
Yes, exactly. That off-duty cop should be thankful that he just got beat up a little bit.
Right. Oh, Jesus. All right. Well, we need to move on from the cop discussion. This is
something more fun. Have we got something more fun? Can we talk about it?
I have no idea if we've got anything fun. I didn't think about anything fun while we were preparing this, but.
Well, I'm always reading the news, but I haven't really, like I said today, the news has been sort of overwhelmed with the Dakota Access Pipeline and some other stuff.
Right. Oh, I know the one thing that I wanted to bring up that goes all the way back to the presidential thing. I mentioned it for a second that we had to come back to is Madonna. Did you hear this thing about Madonna?
No.
You've heard nothing about Madonna?
Not lately.
Okay, so this is going to be a complete surprise to you. But apparently she was at some kind of concert or whatever. Was it one of them was opening for the other, Sarah Silverman and Madonna. Okay, so Madonna preaching for Hillary, right? Promised, and it got caught on video, but she promised the crowd or everybody watching the video, depending on how you interpret it, every single guy out there, she promised them a blowjob in graphic detail if they were vote for Hillary. Like she went into the whole spiel about how good she was at it, how she took her time,
She's gonna be busy for a while.
Yeah, exactly. Well, we started wondering, if this is like, I went so far as to Google whether this would like legally hold up in court, You know, like
She's safe. She's safe
can
because you know
somebody
it's
sue
actually
her?
illegal to give someone a paper receipt for their vote.
Well, I don't know about that, but
It
I'm
is.
just
That voting machines cannot give you a thing that
well.
says
So
how you
you're
voted.
saying right? So you're saying that nobody
You,
can prove how they voted.
you are not
Therefore,
allowed to prove how you voted because
gotcha.
that would allow people to buy votes and give you blowjobs for votes or donuts for votes or
Yeah,
whatever.
well, it would also enable you to prove that the voting machines were rigged. I don't know if you saw that video, but there's a Diebold. I swear they have a Diebold machine and they're all experimenting. And these are people that run elections. They're like
Mhm.
election official people or whatever that don't even believe that these machines can be hacked or whatever. And they have uh, the only question on the ballot was, do you believe these machines can be rigged or hacked or whatever? And 2 of them voted yes, and 6 of them voted no. And they ran the tape at the beginning to show it says 0-0 before any ballots are counted or whatever. And they ran them through and they show them counting them as it goes in. So like well, actually it doesn't show you what the vote is when it goes in, but you put it in and it goes, I counted that vote or whatever. And they put 8 of them in there, 2 yes, 6 no. And they printed the tape out at the end and it was 7 yes, 1 no. And they were all shocked and blown away. I mean, how does the machine do that? So
Chances
I
are
mean,
the machine wasn't the error.
well,
Who did this study? I mean,
I
who
it's
did?
a video. If I were smart enough at running this Google thing, I could probably throw the video in there and we could all watch it, but I can't.
Well,
So
but you have to be able
you'll
to
have to
verify that it's
you
actually real, like that they didn't just stage it to make this.
well, you'll have to
I mean,
put it in the show notes. And I think, I mean, the guy, uh, one of the dudes involved had the card, and I think they're blaming it on the card. There were certainly a lot of unanswered questions. I'll give you that. I'm just saying that,
yeah,
on the surface, somehow that machine lied. And whether,
allegedly.
well,
Well,
um,
according to a video on YouTube,
unless the
it,
video is doctored.
well, that's my point. Is everybody has an agenda, Rob. I mean, like there's people out there trying to convince us that all of our elections are rigged.
Well, I'm just saying.
Yeah, well, I'm not. As long as people are trying to convince me of something, I'm not going to believe them because
But
I want
well,
facts, not.
Well, and one way to get facts would be if I were able to prove my vote and you were able to prove your vote, and we tallied them up at the end to see
Yeah.
if the machine said the same thing or the, state results said the same thing or whatever. That'd be a way to check. But
Well, you realize
without,
that most people have, like where I vote, we have a piece of paper that and then it goes into the machine counts it electronically, but they have the piece of paper. It's in that little safe. They can go back and recount the votes. So if you don't trust the machine, you can go back and check them. There's an audit
but
trail
how often do they ever do that?
when there's a close election.
Exactly. Only in like Bush versus Gore or whatever.
Yeah,
When
but okay, look,
they
when you've got polls that say 55% of the people are going to vote this way, and then 55% of the people do vote that way, you have no reason to believe anything went wrong.
Okay, so how do you explain all the Bernie Sanders stuff then? There are a lot of the ones saying that things are rigged because their poll numbers show that Bernie Sanders is way ahead, and then election day, boom, Hillary wins by 20 points or something ridiculous.
Yeah, well, that
I
has to
mean,
do with
there's definitely a lot of elections recently where the polls were way, way, way wrong.
wait.
And that,
We're not even talking about elections. We're talking about primaries. I'm talking about elections. The United States elections are different than primaries. Primaries are, I don't know who even, like primaries are run by the party that does them or something. They're not, I
well,
mean,
you still go vote the same way. I did. I went into the booth and punched my ballot the same way I do for a general election.
sure. I just don't know that you have Republicans and Democrats there, verifying and checking and counting. And I mean, they do exit polling, which is one way of determining whether or not the votes are going the way, like they're being counted. Hell, most of what we hear on TV is based on exit polling. They're not even counting actual votes, and they still know how the election's going to come out. So I'm just saying, there's no reason, there's no like huge flag that's gone up and said, wow. And I'm talking about federal, I'm not talking about primaries. I have no idea what happens in primaries because they're not the same standard. They're just not done the same way. And the way votes are counted is different because you've got, you know, I don't even know. I don't even know. It's just a whole different thing. The primary elections are handled by the Democratic Party or the Republican Party, and they do them differently by different rules, and God only knows what, you know, how all that works. I mean, the Democrats have super delegates, the Republicans don't. It just.
Okay, well, I'll send you some stuff and you can see.
But I'm saying, in my whole life, I've never seen an election where wow, the results did not reflect what the people voted.
Right, but when you're saying that, you're saying specifically federal general election.
Well, actual elections. Primaries I don't consider to be elections. You're not electing anybody, you're picking a candidate. So it's just different. It's a different process, and I don't pay much attention to primaries. Because primaries are, you know, whatever. I mean, you never have. The Bernie Sanders is the only exception where I actually gave a shit who got elected or who got picked to be the candidate. Because we never get a candidate I want anyway.
Right. Well, I mean, and we're not.
Right, and we didn't. And anyway, the only thing I'd throw in there is that when it's a close election, that's when they actually go back and recount those pieces of paper. So if the machine screwed up and, you know, it didn't screw up like majorly, if it screws up majorly, it's going to be obvious, right? Like, wow, nobody voted for Trump. That's weird. Everybody voted, you know, something like that, right? It'd be like, that's wrong. So they would go count them. But if it's just close, where maybe some people voted, you know, it got counted wrong, or, you know, there were some discrepancies, or somebody voted twice or some stupid shit like that, they can go through the paper ballots and count them and say, okay, you know, because it was a close race, we want to make sure we got the count right. So I'm saying that in the case when they have a paper ballot, and I've always been one for having a paper audit trail. I don't like the idea of it being done totally electronically because it's just too easy to you know, to change without anybody being able to tell. I'm not sure if the debold machines are that. I think they were one of the ones that were really bad. I was reading about these machines a long time ago when they were first coming out and reading about the way they worked. And I might have even known you then and been complaining about them and saying, this is ridiculous. Like, why would anybody design a machine like this when you have to be able to audit the result?
Well, that's the one in the video, but I'll find the video and send you the link. You can decide.
Yeah. Well, there's a couple companies that make them, and I don't remember which companies were the worst ones, but.
Right. So also there's this phenomena. Have you heard of this yet?
Vote trading. Well, that's one of the reasons why you're not allowed to get a receipt. So you can't buy votes, trade votes.
Well, this is, and I'm sure it's not officially endorsed by Clinton, but this is Clinton backers, right, that want people who are going to vote for a third party in a swing state to trade that vote in exchange for 2 votes for their third party candidate in a non-swing state in exchange for them voting for Clinton in the swing state.
You can't verify it though.
Well, I'm not saying you can. But I am saying they have a website and they're actively recruiting people, and you sign up and it matches you and the whole.
So all I have to do is go in and vote for my third party candidate anyway, and then I get 3 votes for my third party candidate.
Correct. If you're going to be dishonorable about it, sure. And
if they have no way of checking
I'm sure on the other end, they're going to be dishonorable about it too. So it's really just a bunch of bullshit. But, you know, it's just crazy.
Yeah, well, I kind of look at it as democracy is only as good as the people that are voting. And that if people are going to be that stupid and they're going to let somebody just schmooze them into giving up their vote, then what are you going to do for those people?
So you think it's just a ploy to get people to vote for Clinton and not reciprocate on the other end?
Oh, I don't know who's going to be dishonest. I just know that as a person in a democracy, and now let's just throw out all the bullshit with our system and, you know, all that. Say, we're in a perfect democracy now. You have a responsibility as a member of that democracy to vote your conscience and protect your vote as if it's the most precious thing around. Like you have one vote, and your vote should have integrity.
Okay.
It's that simple. I mean, your duty, one of your civic duties, is to vote. To
You said
hopefully,
duty.
well, it is really. I mean, in a perfect democracy, it would be, because you want the people's. Everybody should vote. Everybody should come out and vote, and everybody should be educated as to the issues, because otherwise you're just voting in ignorance. And your vote should be basically your vote. Like, you shouldn't be selling it or trading it or anything else. It should be, and democracy would work great that way.
We're all voting in ignorance anyway.
Well, we're voting in ignorance for a couple of reasons that are out of our control, because we don't really know what anybody's going to do. They make promises and they don't keep them. But aside from that, and that's why I said we're not talking in the real world, we're not talking about a perfect democracy. We're talking about a lot of people who don't come out and vote. We're talking about a lot of people who vote based on looks or character or well, character is probably a good thing, but you know, personality, speaking ability, whatever, things that have nothing to do with what they're going to do in office. And then of course you've also got the buying, the trading, the cheating, the whatever, and no system can be better than the people who run it.
Well, we're doomed then. Hey,
Yeah, well, we are. I mean,
way to go.
I actually think that at one time people felt more of a civic duty, and you know, like if they were a judge or an attorney or something, they felt like their job, you know, was more important than their personal views. I don't know if that's really true, but I'd like to think that at one time people had more integrity than they do now. Now it seems like everybody's like, yeah, you know, I want what I want. I want my piece of the pie, and you know, fuck everybody else.
There we go, cussing on YouTube again.
Yeah. Well,
That's
no,
right.
actually,
I did it the first time.
I wasn't cussing. I was actually just being specific. I mean, really, fuck everybody else. Like, as in, bend over and take it in the ass.
Great.
Yeah.
Now we're gonna get banned from YouTube. Way to go. Way to go.
Well,
Season 2, episode 1, we're already banned.
Life is hard. I mean,
It is.
It's getting harder because nobody cares anymore. It's just, when people cared, you know, it was a better system. The system again is failing because people like Donald Trump can come along, people like Hillary Clinton can come along and convince people to vote for them because people don't care about the integrity of the candidate.
Yeah. People just don't care anymore. If there's only some way we could go back to when people cared, some way that we can make America great again.
Exactly.
That's what we need to do. We need to make America great again. Go back to a time when it was wonderful.
Yeah, when there was 3 people here that all came over here to escape religious persecution.
They were all Native American.
Well, or they could be the first, you know, people that escaped from their country. I just, you know, and it's not even, I don't even want to blame it on the people, because our democracy has now gotten to the point where it's an oligarchy. And that's one of the things I love Bernie Sanders for, is he didn't pull any punches when it came to talking about the situation where there's just so much money in the hands of so few people, and money equals power.
Right.
So
they did a study. Okay, so here I am throwing yet another thing at you. It's a Princeton study, and I linked to it a couple of places on Facebook earlier, where the short version is they determined that the percent chance that any given law will pass Congress is 30% straight line across the board.
Okay.
And, right. So they put that on an axis. You know, there's an x-axis, there's a y-axis, right? And the x-axis is how many people are supported. Right? How many of the populace support? So there's 0% at one end, like nobody wants this law to pass.
Right.
And there's 100% where completely everybody in the whole United States all agree that this should be a law. Right. And on the y-axis, of course, is the percent chance that it's going to become a law. So by 30% straight across the board means that if absolutely nobody wants this thing to be a law, there's a 30% chance it'll pass. If 100% of the people want it to be a law,
30% chance.
Still 30%, and everywhere in between. So public opinion or your particular, whether you're for or against, has absolutely zero impact on
Your
Congress.
Yeah.
At
Your representatives.
Correct. So the only catch to this, right, was that the top 1% or 10%, I don't remember exactly how they did it. I think it was 10% actually. The top 10% of wealthy whoever's had their own separate graph, right?
Ah.
And their graph went more in a line. It still wasn't
Like
great.
linear, almost
It
linear.
still wasn't great, but it was more of a line like this that was a lot closer to the ideal line, which would be 1-for-1.
Yeah.
You know, if 1% of the population wants it, 1% chance it'll pass. If 90% of the people want it, 90% chance it'll pass. That would be perfect, the straight line. And it wasn't quite a straight line, but it was a lot damn closer. So if people with money want something to pass, it'll pass. If the whole entire population wants it to pass, there's a 30% chance regardless.
Which brings another point up. There's a thing in Colorado where they're trying to pass one of them citizen referendums that will make it harder for future referendums, because right now, I don't know what the bar is for getting a constitutional amendment, but these referendums are like the legalizing of marijuana and other things. When the people vote on them, they are an amendment to the Constitution. So the legislator,
to the state constitution,
to the state constitution, yeah. So the legislature can't touch them. They can't revoke that law. They can't.
Gotcha.
And because the oil companies are really afraid that the people are going to vote to ban fracking, they're trying to get this changed so that it's harder to get something on the ballot, period, and B, one of the rules they want is that you've got to get people in every county or in every legislative district in the state to sign on to it. You can't just get a certain number of signatures, because they tend to come out of the cities,
right,
where people are more liberal. So that would put a damper on it. And then the other thing is they need a higher percentage of people voting for it, like 55%. But they're trying to make sure that these things stop happening, because they do everything by referendum in Colorado. That's the only way they can get what the people want done.
So let me get this straight. The people can come up with something and get it on the ballot, and if enough people vote for it, it'll become law and go directly around the state legislature. So it's almost as if the people are governing themselves.
Yeah.
That would be weird.
It's ridiculous.
Horrible idea to happen in America.
I know. Well, there are some things you don't want to do that with. I mean, you want to have a constitution. I mean, the reason we have a constitution is so that the majority doesn't just, take out the minorities. Just say,
right. Well,
we're gonna just take away the right to vote from black people. Wait a minute, that's happened before. But we don't let it happen. Yeah.
Right. If enough people protest and march on Washington and have riots in the streets, eventually we'll clear it up.
Yeah.
We'll still hang on to that feeling for another 50, 60, 100 years, but
yeah, well, there was another interesting. We have to wrap this up, but I heard something else funny.
We had to wrap it up an hour ago.
I know, but
it doesn't matter. Nobody's watching now. At this point.
Okay, well, the news was talking about this guy. Talking about how divided the country is and how polarized we are. And he said there was a time when we were more polarized or similarly polarized to what we are now. And that was right before the Civil War.
Great. So we're headed there again.
Well, that was his implication.
Wonderful.
It's like, and he's like, and where that took us. So yeah,
that was one of the uprisings I was mentioning earlier.
Oh, okay.
So back the Civil War the Revolutionary War uprising, that went okay for Americans, but ever since then, uprising against the government, you lose. You're done.
Yeah.
You're to the point of the Civil War. I mean, all the South wanted, as wrong as they were, was to secede, was to make their own country, and that shouldn't be an issue. I don't, it's not like they said, we're going to invade the North and we're going to force our beliefs on you. They said, we have different beliefs. Leave us alone. Let us be. But no, don't ever go up against the United States government. They'll send the military to your house and kill you.
Yeah, I have two things to say about that though. Maybe we
You only
should.
get one. Sorry.
First, I wasn't there, so I really don't know, like, why they didn't want the South to secede or anything. I'm sure it had to do with economics. But secondly, I think they should have let the South secede. I think they really should have let it split, because I can imagine first of all, the North had the vast majority of the wealth, the industrial production, and everything else, and I think it would have worked out well for us Yankees. But that's just,
Well, I mean, they did end slavery.
we would have not had slavery in the North. They would have continued to have slavery in the South.
I know. Well, so that would not necessarily have worked out well for.
No, but slaves would have been defecting to the North, and we would have, eventually it would have. I just don't see how that would have been sustainable. I don't think they could have kept up with what they were doing for much longer. So
Okay, so basically, you're saying it would have worked itself out eventually.
well, and the South would have ended up being probably relatively poor, and because really, I mean, they had their land barons, they had their educated people, but for the most part, they weren't interested in educating most of their population because that was their workforce. And
Right. I don't know if you've been in the South lately, but
yeah.
kind of still that way.
Yeah, well, and that's kind of why I'm thinking if the two had separated way back when, we might have had like a better deal.
In the South.
The North. No, not the South. I wouldn't be here. I would have stayed in my country. My home country would have been, Minnesota, been up north.
Gotcha.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, it just because people talk about why the war happened, and there's so many different opinions and different, historical accounts, and I'm not saying you couldn't get to the bottom of it if you spent enough time, but I personally think it's a lot more complicated than what we like to think. So.
Yep. Yeah, I made Vance watch a documentary, I guess, on it. We all watched it. And it was
good.
3 different parts. They did one from the North's perspective, one from the South's perspective, and one from the slaves' perspective. And that was pretty, gave you a lot of stuff to think about, and more well-rounded kind of idea about why all this stuff happened. But like you said, it's complicated. There's not like, you can't just point to one thing and say, oh, this is what the Civil War was about, because it was about all kinds of different things from all kinds of different people all at the same time.
And we didn't even end slavery at the time. Like when the Civil War was over, they were still using slaves in Texas, and the federal government turned a blind eye to it because they were selling cotton to Britain, was it Britain? What were they back then? They weren't the UK. They were probably Britain. Anyway,
England.
Whatever. England. Okay, we're selling this cotton in England, and England didn't have another good source of cotton, and they didn't want it for the production to stop. And there was this whole period where we didn't tell the slaves in Texas that they'd been emancipated.
Nice.
Seriously. It's like the whole thing is just everything's based on economics. Like, oh, we still need those slaves for a little longer, so don't tell them that the war's over and they've been emancipated.
Jeez.
Yeah,
on that note.
Yeah, I know. But yeah, we need to go to bed, I think.
All right, so we're signing off from
Yes.
Life is Hard podcast, season 2.
Solving the world's problems is going to be the byline on.
Are we? Have we solved anything?
I think we've solved a whole bunch of them, haven't we?
I
Did
don't
we not?
think we've solved.
We spent all this time and we have not solved any of the world's problems.
We haven't solved any of our own problems.
Oh, great! We didn't even get to those. Shit, I didn't bring any of them up.
Actually, we did solve the problem of making this thing work. So, thanks a lot, Google, for making this easy. Now,
I hope you remember how you did it.
We'll have to figure it out again next time. But I'm gonna play the closing music now. So smile and wave at the people.
Yay!
It could be worse.
It could be.
Do y'all know that you're looking at the guy who vocalized this song? It's true.
But it could be worse. Life is hard. It is. Life is hard, and it could be worse.
Yes, it could. I don't know.
But it could be worse.
How do I get out of this thing?
It
Ah!
could be worse.
Oh,
Life is hard.
all right. Well,
But it
have
could be
fun.
worse.
See you next time.
Life is
Bye.
hard.